And that's seeing in those eyes, that seeing is already neutral without any past imagination of being somebody or the future, imagining the future. The seeing itself is already neutral. When the attention is kept in that seeing as it is, without identifying with any appearance, any thought, then it will seem to expand. It will seem to expand. That's neutral, neutrality. And it will be seen that it's just everywhere. It's the only thing that is. There's nothing else. There's nobody seeing, there's just seeing. There's no
So,
doer of it.
so since I was sick today, I watched one of my favorite movies from the 70s, and it's called Being There. And it's about this guy who's I don't know, we would say simple, right? He's just not very smart. Um, but he's a gardener for some millionaire or something. And all he ever does is work on the gardens and watch television. But he has this calm, simple way of talking. Um, you know, which he's learned from watching television over the years, apparently. So then, anyway, the guy that he works for dies, and he has to go out into the real world and meets all these people, and everything around him is so crazy. All these he just runs into all these people, and everybody assumes every time somebody meets him, they assume that he's something he's not. Right? They assume a story
Mm.
around him, and he'll just say something simple about gardening, and eventually he becomes president of the United States. Because people think he's so profound, and he'll just, when people say things or assume something, he won't fight them. Or it came out in the 70s, and I saw that when I was a little kid, and it had a really big impact on me.
No.
Two things: the idea that, you can get by being quiet and just letting life unfold, you know, like he kind of does because he has no other choice. He's just a simple person. Um, and then secondly, that people see you the way, you know, they just build a story around you the way, you know, their own universe is leading them. And that's part of the story too, right? Because he's always well dressed, he's always wearing a tie. He, wore his millionaire, the guy who worked for his clothes. So then when he goes out into the world, he's wearing a top hat or a hat, nice hat, and a three-piece suit. And so people just assume he's rich and wealthy, and just all this bizarre stuff happens. And
Yeah.
the movie's called Being There, you know. And it's ironic, right? Because in a way, one way he's not there, he's detached from
Mm.
the crazy world around him. But on the other hand, he's at peace, and he's actually there more than everybody else. It's a really nice, really amazing movie.
Mm.
Send you a
How
link.
beautiful. Yeah, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. Yeah. You are already there without trying. There's nobody. You're already. I remember when I used to say, what seems to be the me searching is already late. It's already late in a way. This is already here. The searching, the seeking, struggling, looking is already happening in that which is not searching, it's not trying, it's not doing anything, it's just there. And that as well is also its appearing as searching, you know. And when you see people walking around, some going to work, children going to school, they just uh, to see somebody you know, it just runs in the head. But that's what is seen. It's not somebody. It's just everything. To say it's somebody, it runs here. So children are going to school, people are walking around. No, there are no people who are walking around. It's just a projection. There's nothing happening. It's just everything. Mm. Even the movement that may seem to happen is just a movement in the head. There's no real movement. So I would say it's imaginary. This never moves.
So we look out into the galaxies and they appear to never end. And there's huge black holes and novas, and how could it end? How could it not end? Neither of those make any sense. You know, what is it? If it's me, if it's us, it's all one thing. I think that it's compartmentalized. Because I'm not in the middle of the sun, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we can agree. So how does that work? Does it work? How do multiple perspectives work? Seeing is one seeing. Life is creative. All life is creative. Even even empty air is creative. And I am that creativity. But it goes far beyond anything I'll ever see or touch or be, even if I'm it, right? I mean, I don't know. How do you see it? How do you see it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's this as it is subtler in space. So to say, like for an example, to say, oh, the sun is greater than I am. the moon is greater, the earth is greater. That has to do with an imaginary or an idea that you are discussing, but really what you are, the sun, the moon, and all the planets are seen as just appearances in you. Everything is an appearance in you, because what you are is formless and everywhere present. So I may say there is no end to what you really are. There is no end. It doesn't end. It just goes on and on and on and on to the infinity. So
Well, one would assume that it loses its influence as it gets a little farther away. I don't know. I mean, I can't drop my mind. I can feel that sometimes. I can feel I'm not me. I can feel that things don't really move, that there's a block and it all comes before and erupts. It's a perspective that I can get, that I can feel. And I can know that to be true. But I got a lot of schooling.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's very simple. When you don't imagine, when there's no thinking, what are you? Without any imagination, without thinking.
Nothing.
Yes.
Experience. Empty experience.
So that nothing, is it local or is it everywhere present?
Everywhere I can see.
Even what seems to be a local seeing is seen.
Yeah.
So there must be something greater than that.
As science gets more and more sophisticated, physicists come up with some pretty strange ideas. And one of the ideas they've started to come up with is the idea of a multiverse. Do you know the idea of a multiverse?
Yeah, I think I've heard about it. Yeah.
Just simultaneous, and maybe even all that, because everything is infinite, there might be infinite varieties of experience, and somehow we can hop timelines between these universes somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's become science fiction kind of thinking and plot lines, and sometimes it feels as if I am everything, you are everything. How is that rectified? With the other 5 billion people on the planet, not to mention the ants and the blades of grass.
Well, I may say there is no I am who is everything. There's just everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just everything.
Yeah.
And uh, I also believe that everything, other dimensions are already here.
Yeah.
It's just when you tune into a certain frequency, you were able to be there without even traveling. It's not a matter of traveling.
Yeah.
It's a matter of frequency, change of frequency.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right.
Just like a radio, you know, when you tune into
Yeah.
yeah, a certain frequency, you're able to to listen to a certain radio station.
Yeah. So maybe the universes are like radio stations. Simultaneously broadcast throughout the could skip multiverses by just turning that knob, if you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Nobody dies. Nobody dies.
Yeah.
You change frequency. But that's a story which is an appearance in this as well.
Yeah.
The character may seem to change frequency, go to another dimension. What seems to be mountains in that other dimension may seem to be a stadium or an airport. It's like that. Everything is just here. Everything is
There's
just here.
there's these there's this thing called the Mandela effect. It was named after Nelson Mandela, actually. Um, and it's when everybody thinks that something else happened that didn't happen, you know, and it's named after Nelson Mandela because so many people feel as if Nelson Mandela died in the 90s and they heard about it, you know, all over the world. And the example that I love is there was a movie that came out when I was a kid. It was a James Bond movie. And one of the villains falls in love with a young Swedish girl. And the villain has got a mouthful of metal teeth. And then the young girl has braces. And then that she smiles and there's braces. And it's sort of like a laughter thing, like, they fell in love because they have metal teeth in common. But that girl did not have braces. And if you go back and watch that movie, she doesn't have braces. And, it's gotten so much that people, contacted that actress and said, no, I never had braces. But everybody remembers that joke and remembers that.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers something that didn't happen. Everybody remembers, not everybody, lots of people remember Nelson Mandela dying as if there's multiple possible worlds and that history isn't constant.
Yeah.
And scientists say, physicists, sophisticated physicists say that there's no reason mathematically or logically why time can't travel in both directions.
Yeah.
and as a matter of fact, there's examples where they can be positive that things do travel backwards in time. They look very, very, microscopically nanotechnology things appear like, electrons or something appear to go back in time when they're, I don't know, It's all very fun to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I've also heard about that, that they're able to go back in time, when something, let's say in a certain area, there were there were there were trees there. So they'll be able to go back in time to that certain place and cut those trees. And then all the trees, then it will seem as if it was just a desert. It's very, they
Did I ever
say
tell
it's
you about my
mind.
dream? I had a dream once that was a premonition. You know what a premonition dream is? I had a dream of the future.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I had a dream, and it was a mundane thing, My hometown, I know a lot of dreams I have in my hometown. I had a dream that was a part of an area where, there was a big hole in the ground, inside of a big hill that they'd like leveled the block and it was mud. And then I went there 2 years later, and that they had just done that to build apartments. It was just completely incredible.
Wow, nice. Yeah.
Such a stupid thing to have a future dream about, right? A hole in the ground.
Wow, very beautiful.
Yeah.
When you talk about that, I had a dream when I just woke up, then went to the kitchen. But when I opened the door there to leave the house, I was so amazed to discover that there were no longer houses. They were just big, uh, round, roundish halls. I don't know how to put it, like big dome houses, very huge. But these houses, they would at some point, and then they would just lift off and go and shoot to outer space. I discovered that it was the same neighborhood, but things had changed, completely changed. And it was unnecessary to go out to wait for the transport or to wait for the bus. You could simply just stay in your house and press the button and the house will spin and just took off, take off. It was very, it was very strange. It was very strange. I think somehow it was
Yeah.
the future thing that it's gonna be like that. Yeah, it was a beautiful experience.
Where are dreams? So, when I had that dream, I started looking it up, and apparently dreams about the future are quite common. Lots of people have dreams about things that then happen, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
But it's not like, falling down the stairs or something that's within my, this specific block, this specific hole, you know, 3,000 miles from where I live or whatever. Such a strange thing, I mean, it has to tap into something. It's not a coincidence. Can't be a coincidence. And that's, other people, same thing. I mean, that's a universal phenomenon. So where are they? Where do we tap in? But I think about what you say. And Nisargadatta Maharaj says, you know, it's all just this anyway. It's all just it's just another level of imagination, you know. Nisargadatta will say, I am beyond the gods. He'll say, yes, there's gods. You are beyond the gods. The gods are in you.
Yes, exactly. Exactly like that. Mm. Yeah, everything is seen as just a story. You know, when somebody tells about certain character that had a huge impact in the world, that is seen as just a story, another novel. You know, this is much greater than everything. Yet, it's also appearing as that, as a story. So it's really everything. It can never really be pointed to because it's everything. Who can point to everything? What can point to everything? Is there anything separate that it can able to say, oh, there is everything? Then that's not everything. Then if there's something that is able to say it's everything, then it's not, it's everything.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's the black hole. It's beyond what we can see.
yes. So there's no good and bad. It's just everything. So to love your neighbor as you love yourself, it just happens naturally. It's not something that you should try to do. It just happens naturally. It's just the nature.
In fact, if you try to do it, it doesn't do any good. That's not what he was talking about.
Exactly.
A few people get that.
So there is no real separate somebody who can see it because there's only it. All those glimpses, when somebody says, oh, I had glimpses, I saw it, that's really when those glimpses, they seem to happen. They happen when there is no imagination of being somebody. It's just everything seeing itself. It's not somebody who's having glimpses. It's just everything seeing itself as it is, not somebody. So the me is never there already.
What do you think about the word surrender? What do you think about the Christian concept of Surrender.
I think the word it has to do with uh, mm, letting go of this identity, this separate self in its real meaning. Surrender has to do with allowing things to be as they are, without trying to change anything. Because really, it's when there's in Christianity, really, uh, they really talk about the change of character that you have to change, allow yeah, God to change your character. You know. But surrender, when I try to explain it, I may say it's just a matter of allowing things to be as they are.
Yeah.
Recognizing that there's just this, there's never really any separation. And when they describe it, they say it's you have to like surrender so that God will change the character.
Right. Well,
But really,
it's semantics.
mm,
It's the same thing that you're talking about functionally.
mm,
You externalize it, that allows you to be more humble, right? It
mm.
allows the character to be more humble. I think that works. That's a formula that works for people. I think I can get them to pretty amazing places.
Yeah.
This weekend, we set up a bathtub outside for Melissa. It's like an old vintage bathtub, like it's about 100 years old and huge iron porcelain, like what an old bathtub looks like, freestanding with like, do you know what I'm talking about? No.
Uh, no.
I'll send you a picture. I'll send you a picture. But anyway, they're these
Okay.
gold. They used to make bathtubs really gorgeous here, and they don't make them gorgeous anymore. But we bought an old one and we put it outside. So I hooked it up to the plumbing in the house, right? But in order to do that, I had to do some plumbing, right? So I immediately got in like way over my head and got under the house and started cutting pipes and making contraptions to try to hook up the plumbing for the bathtub outside. And it wasn't gonna work. Just totally wasn't gonna work. And I'd already cut both the hot water and the cold water lines to the house. There was nothing I could do to get them back, set up because there's, hunks of pipe missing. I was gonna have to call a professional plumber. It's gonna be totally expensive.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there under the house, spiders, and I'm just like, oh. I just felt like I wanted to cry, I just felt like, oh my God, I can't do this. I've gotten in way over my head. And it's like the minute I said that, the pipe popped into place that I'd been struggling with.
Wow. Mm,
But it seems like that's a formula. You know, once you surrender and get out of the way, then things will just
Yeah.
happen the way they're supposed to. But as long as
Yeah.
you think you're doing it, as long as I'm thinking like I'm gonna do this big thing, I mean, I'm not a plumber, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good example. Yeah. What is, it's just, when there's so much struggling trying to get to, say, a certain place, but being unable to do it. But when you just allow what is this and just be nothing as it is, and then things may seem to happen, you know, and there may seem to be that amazement. Wow, oh, what a relief. But when there's still that strong intention to, I can do it, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, then
Yeah.
yeah.
A- athletes athletes are really good at that.
Mm.
What makes a you know what makes a great athlete is, being born with a certain body, A,
Mm.
having the discipline to train, B, but that only gets you about this far. What really happens is to be able to just let go of ownership of your body and just get into it. And they talk about that a
Yeah.
lot. Great athletes talk about that a lot. Um,
Mm.
Jagger talks about that a lot,
Mm.
with that baseball. It's baseball. Zone.
Yeah, I
Get
believe
out
as
of
well.
the
It's what Allen does.
Allen, yes. Jagger, yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's the same as pain or sickness. When you're experiencing pain, when there's an experience of pain and sickness in the body, when you simply surrender and just watch it, rather than being the victim of it, just be nothing and watch it as it is. You know, it will seem to dissipate. You know, watch it as a whole. It's because what you really are is everything. So just watch it. All the attention, just bring it back to it. Not trying to get rid of it or just simply watching it, and then it just seems to dissipate. There's so much power there without even doing anything, just simply watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever listen to
The thought.
American Do you ever listen to American
Go ahead.
jazz music?
Uh, no, not really. But my brother, my brother, he loves jazz. He plays jazz, and he always listening to it to jazz.
Like the great most great jazz, they just make it up as they go along. You know, like literally, they get the guys in the room and then they just make some songs up. Like they don't, you know, they might have they might have like a seed, you know, but all the variations and playing together, it's a kind of a group improvisation process. They have to know, they have to feel, they have to be, you know, completely in the moment, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Or
And
you
one
mean
of
like somebody who could just start by playing a bass guitar, and then
oh yeah,
somebody with a
those
saxophone will join. Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Wow.
One of the first dates that Melissa and I had, she took me to see this jazz great that was played in an auditorium, you know. That was like 1980, no, 1980, 1990-ish. And you know, he was somebody from the 60s who had been very famous. And the first like half hour, they did two sets, right? The first half hour, 45 minutes, just awful. You know, they couldn't get around each other. It sounded like they were fighting. And then they came
Yeah.
back, and then all of a sudden it was just gorgeous, just like just erupted completely, you know, never to be played
Mm.
again, right? Never to happen again.
Wow.
But that process of improvisation, to do it right, you'd have to 100%, well, be a great musician, but also just get out of the way, you know. You can't think
Yeah.
when you're making music like that. You have to tap into something.
Mm.
And a lot of those guys were really spiritual about it, you know, really religious about it, like
Mm.
Christian. That's what we're doing,
Y-
improvising a life.
Yeah, you know, thinking it may seem to happen by itself. But have you ever noticed that when somebody is uh, looking for something, maybe is talking to you, asking for something, let's say if you've never seen this and that. But have you ever noticed that uh, the first thought that seems to appear is the right one?
If you're looking for
Maybe they
something,
say when you have misplaced something,
uh-huh.
we're looking for something, then the thought may say it's in the bathroom. You know, the first thought is always right, but
I
when you
haven't
miss
noticed
that
that.
one, when you've missed it, it's a small still voice that seems to arise at the time that you are in need of something that you've misplaced it. But that's that small still voice that says it's in the bathroom. When you don't pay attention to it, then you will end up looking everywhere else.
I mean, I know, I mean, I can feel my intuition definitely. And if I don't follow my intuition, I get into, and the intuition is always the first thought, for sure. I can't use it to find
Yes,
things, but
it's it's beautiful, it's beautiful. It just says mm, just that voice. Then all other voices they will come after all other thoughts. Maybe it's there, maybe.
You're taking your auntie to the bus stop today?
Yeah, but not now. Yeah,
Another
maybe
15,
after, yes, after 15.
15
After
minutes. Okay.
15. How did you know?
Well, I can see the clock in the
Oh yeah.
corner.
Yeah, beautiful.
So maybe we'll stop in 10 and have 5 minutes to do some other stuff.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
I went to a Krishna temple on Thursday. You know what the Krishnas are?
Krishna.
Krishna, yeah. The Indian god,
Um,
the blue Indian god
oh yeah, yeah, I know, I
with the
know,
flute.
I know. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
Krishna.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They have Krishna temples all across America, you know, that opened up in the 70s. And, some of them are kind of Indian, some of them are kind of not Indian, but this one's pretty Indian. And there's one, it's just a few miles from my house, by where I go meditate in the forest. So I went last Thursday night, and they chant. They'll just sing on Thursday. They call it satsang, and they'll sing for hours, you know, and people
Mm.
just pick up instruments and start playing them. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so good. Singing, but uh it's really beautiful, and it makes you feel like you're floating, you know, after you sing
Mm.
with the folks for a while. And I'm not a Krishna, but I like to go sing with the chant with the Krishnas.
Mm.
And at the front of the at the altar, right? They had a little, like, it looked like a child's doll, you know, of Krishna and his wife. I can't remember, Rama or something. I can't remember her name is. Um, all these flowers around them. They just look like kids' dolls with these kind of exaggerated eyes. And after a while, with all the singing and everything, you almost feel like those gods are watching you,
Yeah.
start floating around. But I felt that the first time, what what Nisargadatta was talking about with the um that's in me, you know. Yes, that is Krishna, but that's in me, you know, all the gods, everything. Felt it really tangibly.
Yeah, it's yeah, all things are just appearances and they're just appearances and yet they are also what you are. Someone may say, uh, there is nobody here. Some may say you are everything. So those statements are pretty much the same. Yeah, what you really are is everything and nothing in the same time. if somebody's preaching, maybe he's preaching to the church congregation, church members, the preacher and those who are listening to the preacher are still what you are, including the building, the chairs, the pulpit, the singers, the preacher, the members, everything. It's very funny. You know?
You have choirs in your dad's church when you were growing up? Their choirs?
Yeah, at time they will be because it's at that time I think I was like six
I see.
years. Yeah, they would be a group, different choirs, different groups, singers. Yeah.
I bet you it sounded amazing. I bet it sounded amazing.
Yeah, and my
African.
aunt would be part of it as well.
So were they like African versions of Christian hymns, basically?
Yes, yes. They would sing Zulu songs, Zulu Christian songs. And they talk about Jesus, yeah, how he died, how he saved the world, things like this.
I love that kind of music. I love religious music, no matter what religion. Religious music,
Yeah,
Muslim, Hindu, Christian. A lot you do hear
mm,
some lot from Africa that you can tell is religious music. So
yeah, yeah. I also love as well listening to American Christian music. Like, yeah, I love those those songs with the very fast beats. You know. Pam 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 pam. Yeah,
gospel, you're
I
talking
used to
about
listen
gospel
to
though, right? Gospel
gospel
music.
here.
Yes. I love that. Yeah. My wife doesn't like it so much because she had Christianity shoved down her throat, you know.
Yeah,
She hears it a little different. But the love, you can just really hear the love.
yeah. All religions are one because it's just everything. It's everything, you know. Then this as it is, it doesn't really mind listening to all religion because they're just words spoken, and all words appear. They are just appearing in this as this. So there's no good or bad, really. So the whole world as it is, or you can say there's no world, is okay. Is okay because it's just everything. It's just wholeness appearing as the world. There's no real world. A kid in the streets, a thief, a policeman, Pasta. Reptilian.
What'd you say?
Reptilian.
A reptilian?
Bird, yeah, a bird, you know,
A reptile.
a
You meant
donkey.
reptile.
Yeah,
Okay.
reptile, sorry.
Reptilians don't exist. But neither does the thief or the child or the pastor, so.
Yeah, it's all justice. It's all justice. It's all justice. And the labels are given. There's no really distinction. There's no distinction. There's no difference. It's just one and the same thing.
Okay, can we break? I want to have a few minutes.
All right.